prayed and we've really felt that God wanted to chat to us this morning. He wanted to reveal something of His covenant with us. So our theme this morning is God's covenant with me. And as we look at God's covenant with us and the way that He has set out for us to walk into that covenant, it is so super important that we are going to have the right theology about our covenant with God. And theology is study of God. And it's important that we don't, in our study of God, go to society and study society and form our theology of God. Or look at another Christian and study them and form our theology of God. Or, the worst one, look at ourselves and form our theology of God. We need to go back to the Bible and study God and form our theology from that. If we don't do that, we are going to be self-formed and we are going to be malformed. Now, if you've ever seen, if someone is malformed in the physical, like whatever they look like, they're never going to have the full experience of life that someone that is normally formed, properly formed. And in the same way, if we don't have the correct theology, our theology from, if it's not correctly formed, if it's malformed, we'll never have that full experience what God has planned for us in this covenant with Him. So this morning, like we said in that song, let's open our hearts for revelation from God. Really, I want you to take your eyes off me or off Lisa that's going to share this morning. And really, as we sit here, activate your spirit to really let God come and bring revelation to you this morning. Let's be attentive to what He has said for us. Let's hear His invitation this morning of saying, "Rise up, my beloved, and come away with me." And let Him lead us this morning as ladies. Let's go with Him and let Him lead us where our hearts are burning. And we can say, "My lover is mine and I am His." So there's many different pictures in the Bible that we can look at and that actually gives us input into this covenant. It explains this covenant to us. But one of the pictures is marriage. So marriage is a covenant. It's this promise of connectedness. It's this witness. It's this, doesn't matter what we're going to go through, if it's the good or the bad or the ugly, nothing is going to change the fact that we're together. And that is what God has designed this covenant with Him to be. Doesn't matter what we're going through in life, that we will always know that we are in that safe place of connectedness, of attachment. In the world, they talk a lot about attachment. Like when we go do marriage counseling, they base it all on the attachment theory. We need to attach. And all that it is, it's this longing in us. This is God's design for us. So with that design, He has put this longing in us for attachment. He's put this longing in us to be connected, to be with, to be seen and to be heard and to be known and to be safe. So this longing is not a bad thing. It's a very, very good desire that we have. So for me and Ryan, we've been, just hang on a minute. We've been married now for 16 years. So for us, it's been 16 years of learning how to love and how to attach. And when I look back on our marriage, I see myself attaching and then detaching. Attaching and then detaching. Enjoying marriage and then being very disappointed. Feeling loved and then feeling rejected. When we went into this marriage, we were excited because this is what God has designed. It's going to be safe and it's going to be beautiful. But it didn't take us actually that long to realize that it's not that simple. It's not that once-off event. And in the same, in our relationship with God, it's not that once-off event. It's this journey of attaching to Him. And I think this morning I can say that our marriage isn't perfect. There is so much that I can oh God, we want still more in this and more in this. But I can say one thing, we're on the way of attachment. And that is what I want to speak to this morning. How do we know that in our covenant with God, that we are on the way of attachment? Just in the same way that we can attach and detach to a person, we do that same thing with God. In the same way that I can be married to someone and not have a strong attachment to them, in the same way we can be a Christian, and in this covenant with God, we might not have a strong attachment to God. So this morning, I want you to look with me at our journey of attachment. Not that once-off event, because that once-off event is beautiful and it's necessary. But this morning, we want to look at the journey of our attachment to God. Now, if we are going to go on a journey, there's a few things we need to know. The first thing that you want to know, and what you definitely need to know, is where are you going to end up? What is going to be your end destination? That's pretty important. And for us, that we need to have a super good picture of what that end destination is going to be, because it's going to be the picture of that end destination that is going to make it worth it when it gets hard. It's going to be the joy that is set before us that's going to get us through those difficult times. And for us as Christians, our end destination is that final moment when we get ultimately, securely attached to Jesus in perfection for the rest of eternity. It's that wedding, like the marriage, the wedding feast of the Lamb, where we, in a perfect world without sin, for the rest of eternity, can live and can be in perfect union with perfect love. That is our end destination. And it's so important for us to have a very, very clear picture of that end destination if we want to really make it through this journey to the end. Because sometimes this journey gets a little bit long and we lose a little bit of focus, and that end picture gets a little bit blurry. And then we start thinking that our end destination is maybe our wholeness. Or we start thinking that that end destination is maybe that God is going to give us a life without suffering. We're thinking that that end destination is about me doing well. And we need to this morning shift that if we don't have that proper picture of our union with Christ as our end destination. Because if we don't have the right expectation, we're going to struggle in this journey. So the second, first I want to say, if we, this world, in this journey that we're going to have, this world, we need to know that we're on this journey in a world that is broken and its ways are broken. So that's always going to inhibit that perfect connection with Jesus. Before sin, we had that perfect connection with Jesus, but now we're in this world, in this broken world, and we don't have that. So we need to be aware that this world and its brokenness is always going to inhibit that. But that is why we need to look at Jesus this morning, not only at what He did, because we know that what He did made a way for us to be attached, but also it's so important this morning that we're going to look at how He showed us. In Jesus' journey all the way to the cross, He showed us what to expect in this journey, how to posture ourselves for this journey. And that is the second thing that we need to know. So the first thing is our destination, and we need to clear a clear picture of our destination. And then the second thing that we need to know, and that we want to know, and that's very important to know, is what to expect. If I think that I'm going to get to my end destination via a cruise ship, which is designed and for my entertainment and my comfort and my leisure, I'm going to have a very different expectation. I'm going to posture myself in a very different way from if I need to go over these mountains on foot. If I expect the cruise ship, I'm not going to be ready to go over these mountains on foot. I'm going to have a very different posture, and I'm going to feel like I didn't sign up for this. I'm going to feel like the victim, and I'm going to pray that God takes me out of it. I'm going to feel bullied, and I'm going to feel like the victim. So this morning, I want to look at the Word and see what has God said in His Word about this expectation that we should have for this journey. And I want to look at 1 Peter 4 from verse 12. It says, "Dear friends, don't be surprised at the fiery trials you are going through. Have the right expectation, as if something strange were happening to you. Instead, be very glad, for these trials make you partners with Christ in His suffering, so that you will have the wonderful joy of seeing His glory when it is revealed to all the world." So don't have the wrong expectation and feel like the victim when these trials and very, very difficult things are going to happen to us. Be very glad. Be very glad. This is not going to crush you. This is not going to separate you from God. For these trials make you partners with Christ. It is part of our journey of attaching to Jesus. It is so important that we get this thing, because if as Christians we have an expectation of these beautiful worship sessions and people prophesying over us and counseling us and caring for us, we are going to be disillusioned after the first 2 weeks. Because those moments are real, and it's a part of the journey that is a beautiful part of the journey. But it is only a part of the journey. There's another part that is such an important part that we can't forget and that we actually need to gear ourselves with. I want to now play you a song that is going to help us to set our expectations for this journey. And I want to ask you to, as we listen, don't listen to the song to be entertained by a beautiful song. Listen to the song, and as you listen, open your heart to God to realign your expectations for this journey of attachment to Him. God, I pray that as we listen to this song, that you will come and reveal yourself to us. Not only what you've done, but also how you have made, how you have set out for us to walk out this journey of attachment to you.
What does love look like is the question I've been pondering. What does love look like? What does love look like is the question I've been asking of you. Once believed that love was romance, just a chance. I even thought that love was for the lucky and the beautiful. I once believed that love was a momentary bliss, but love is more than this. For all you ever wanted was my attention. All you ever wanted was love from me. is the question I've been pondering. What does love look like? If all of life comes down to love, then tell me, what does love look like? Is the question I've been pondering. What does love look like? Then I sat down, a little frustrated and confused. If all of life comes down to love, then love has to be more than sentiment, more than selfishness and selfish gain. And then I saw him there, hanging on a tree, looking at me. I saw him there, hanging on a tree, looking at me. He was looking at me, looking at him, staring through me. I could not escape those beautiful eyes, and I began to weep and weep. He had arms wide open, a heart exposed. Arms wide open, he was bleeding, bleeding. Arms wide open, a heart exposed. Arms wide open, he was bleeding, bleeding. Love's definition, love's definition was looking at me, looking at him, hanging on a tree. I began to weep and weep and weep and weep. This is how I know what love is. 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 And as I sat there, weeping, crying, those beautiful eyes, full of desire and love, and he said to me, you shall love me, you shall love me, you shall love, you shall love me, you shall love me, you shall love me, you shall love me, you shall love with arms wide open, a heart exposed.
Arms wide open, bleeding, bleeding. Wide open, a heart exposed. Arms wide open, bleeding, bleeding. Is this the posture that we are sitting with here this morning? Or are we sitting here with hands clenched tight and our arms across our chest, protecting our hearts that has been cracked and has been chipped away, and maybe it's been fractured very deeply? I want you to really open your hearts this morning as we move into this posture of cruciformity. Cruciformity meaning being shaped in the form of a cross, with arms wide open and a heart exposed. So when we're going to go on a journey, we already know what the destination is going to be, and we know what to expect. We are changing our expectations. That takes a little while. But then there's another thing that we are going to need for the journey. When we are going to need for this long hike that we are going to do all the way to our destination. And that is that there will be markers. When you go on a long hike, there's like these little markers, that the yellow markers for the yellow route, and there's like the blue markers for the blue route, and the red markers for the red route. And these little red markers will say, you're still on the right way, just keep going. And the little red marker saying, turn off this way. And the little red marker saying, it feels like you lost because this road is very difficult. But don't worry, you're still on the right way. And this morning I want to give you 3 markers for our journey of attachment to God. 3 markers that when you feel these things, you don't have to think, oh, I'm sure I'm on the wrong way. You can know when you feel and experience these things that you're on the right way. The first one that you are going to see is this one. It says vulnerable. You know that you're on the way of attachment to God when He starts asking you to be vulnerable. He can be asking you to be vulnerable about your struggles, about your doubts, maybe about sin that you're struggling to conquer, maybe about your fears for the future. There's many, many things that we can be vulnerable about, and that God can specifically prompt us and say, I want you to be vulnerable about this thing. But anyone who has ever tried to be vulnerable know that it's not that easy. It is very, very hard because we know how to protect ourselves. So we want to protect ourselves with our hearts closed and our arms across our chest. But that is where we need to move into that cruciformity with arms wide open and our hearts exposed. If you're like me, vulnerability is that thing where you try and then you fail and then you fall and then you try again. And then just when you open up to your heart to be exposed, someone hurts you and you close up again. And that journey we can go on cycles for a long time. Open, close, open, close. But then we have our picture of Jesus on the cross. And his arms are wide open, heart exposed, vulnerable. And then the next thing, a soldier comes and he bangs a nail through his wrist. That did not feel safe. That was pain. But in that moment of vulnerability and what felt maybe unsafe, God was making a way back to intimacy. It was in that vulnerable place that he was doing that work. And for us, that's the picture that we need to keep in mind with our own lives. Maybe we feel we were arms wide open and heart exposed, but now I'm going to get hurt. Yes, you are going to get hurt. That was the example that Jesus gave us. In his most vulnerable place, he got hurt. But he didn't close up again. And I want to really this morning challenge us that it's not about being vulnerable with people because they are going to respond well. We are needing to be vulnerable with people because that is God's way. But when we are vulnerable with people, we're not entrusting our hearts to them, we're entrusting our hearts to Jesus. We are living like Him. We're becoming like Him. We are loving like Him. And in that place, a deep connection is formed with Him. Firstly, with Him. When we are vulnerable, it's not so much about you and the other person you are being vulnerable with. It's between you and God. A life that it is truly cruciform, is truly vulnerable enough that the heart is willing to be hurt. C.S. Lewis says, to love at all is to be vulnerable. Love anything and your heart will be wronged and possibly broken. It is so counterintuitive for us to do this thing, but we have to realize that it's only in being cruciform that will lead to vulnerability, and that's the way to intimacy. There is no other way to intimacy than through cruciformity, vulnerability, intimacy. So now we are walking on our road and we're going on our journey, and we've seen our first marker, and then as we walk, we see the next one. Let go. You know that you're on the way of attachment to God when He doesn't only ask you to be vulnerable, but now He's also asking you to let go. We are very clever in our own eyes. And we know what to do. And this is what we do. I'm going to show you. We live in a broken world with broken ways, as we've established in the beginning. And in this broken world, we get hurt. I'm going to use teddies because teddies are comfortable and they're soft and they're comforting. So in our broken world, people that's also broken and that's also got sin just like us, hurt us. Like super hurt us. And then we hold this unforgiveness and we be comforted by it. And we walk around with it. Because I know how to protect myself. And then we try and be a little bit vulnerable, and then they just don't know what to do with it, and they actually hurt us more. Then we get another teddy. Offense. And then we just cuddle our teddies because that's what makes us feel safe. And then we decide we don't know if we can trust God, so we're going to make our own plans. And we're going to plan this thing out ourselves. And then we take our other teddy. Because we don't want to lose control. We don't know if God's really going to look after us. And then, with all our teddies, we come into God's presence. And then we say, God, oh, we love you so much, God. Oh, Jesus, oh, we're going to be just like you. Jesus, will you heal us? Jesus, will you set us free? Oh, Jesus, we love your presence. But if we really, really, really want to hear what God has got to say to us, we will hear that He says, it's only when we let go and go into cruciform that we will truly be free. We cannot be cruciform and hold on to all our teddies. Impossible. And we can't let God get to our hearts when we hold all our teddies. We need to go, arms wide open, heart exposed. So maybe today, let me just back our teddies away. God wants to ask us to let go of some things. Maybe He wants to ask us to let go of our anxiousness about the future. Maybe He wants us to let go of our overproductivity that makes us feel so important. Maybe He wants us to let go of our overactivity that just keeps us busy, so that we're distracted. Maybe He wants us to let go of our overwhelm because we don't actually just want to spend time with Him and hear His voice. We want to be in that space where we worry about things. So I want to look with you again at the Word to see what God is saying about letting go. Let's look at Philippians 3, verse 7 to 9. I once thought these things were valuable, but now I consider them worthless because of what Christ has done. Yes, everything else is worthless compared to the infinite value of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. For this sake, I have discarded everything else, counting it all as garbage, that I could gain Christ and become one with Him. The further we go on in this journey, the less we can take with us. We need to know that these things, our revelation of Jesus needs to get to that place where these things that we're holding becomes garbage. And we focus our eyes on Him. We hear His invitation on this journey to keep company with Him. And then we accept that invitation. We said, yes, Jesus, I will let go of these things and I will keep company with you on this journey. And then our hearts are full. Take a sip of water on our journey. And then we walk, and then we get to the next marker. And we're a little bit like, what? That's weird. Because the next marker says, sacrifice. Sacrifice. I thought we already were vulnerable, and I thought I already let go of things. Where's the moment that we are now going to focus on me and where you are going to come give me some things back, God? Because I'm doing so well, and I thought that is what you called me to do, to be vulnerable and to let things go. Wow. So as we carry on and we pondering this thing of sacrifice, and our heart is heavy because we just don't know if we can carry on this journey, if that is going to be what it's going to be. Sacrifice, letting go, sacrifice. And then as we walk, the Father comes and He walks with us. And He says, come, let's sit a little while. Let's have something to eat. And He breaks the bread and He gives it to us. And we eat it. And then He pours us the wine and we drink it. And together with Him, we focus on Jesus and our hearts lighten up again. And then our heart starts burning again when He starts explaining what He means by sacrifice. When He starts explaining that it means something so different from our understanding of sacrifice. The original word of sacrifice in the Hebrew language is korban. And it literally means to come nearer, to draw closer, to approach. Sacrifice is not about losing things. It's about drawing closer to someone. Sacrifice is not about loss. It's about the invitation to love. When we feel the pain of sacrifice, we know that we are moving closer to Jesus. We are keeping company with Jesus. Wherever we let go, we get to love more. Sacrifice is about detaching from one thing to attach to a greater thing, a greater one. In Luke 9, verse 23, I want to read this quickly. Then he said to the crowd, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way. Take up your cross daily and follow me. If you try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it." Take up your cross, deny yourself, forget your father's house and run with me, and you'll come alive. When you learn to die, take up your cross, deny yourself, forget your father's house and run with me, and you'll come alive. When you learn to die. This journey of life is hard, and it is always going to be hard. But can we hear the invitation of Jesus this morning? Can we hear that we're not doing it alone? Through everything that we've spoken this morning, there was an invitation of Jesus saying, "Come, keep company with me. Keep company with me as I walk towards the cross." But are we willing? Are we willing to keep company with him when it's not going to be pleasant and easy and comfortable for us? Or is that not part of what we want? Just like in marriage, if we're not willing to attach, if we're not willing to be vulnerable and present in the difficult times, we're only willing to be in that when it's easy and pleasant for us. If we're only willing to attach then, we will never have the fullness in marriage. And in the same way, if we're not willing to attach and be vulnerable and present with Jesus in all of the journey, we will never have the fullness of what is planned for us in this covenant. As we walk towards the cross with Jesus, we will be cruciform, and we will be vulnerable, and we will be intimate. And it will be hard, and it will be sore, and we will be bleeding. But if we're not, maybe we're not keeping company with him in all of him. As I was thinking about this thing of just keeping company with Jesus on this way, like I had such a clear sense of him saying to me, he's not keeping company with us as a coach that is walking and is instructing us so that we can become our best selves. The coach wants you to succeed so that he and you can get glory. That's not God's intention. He's keeping company with us on this road for connection, for attachment. A coach or an instructor will give instruction after instruction for correction. But the Father is giving invitation after invitation for connection. This journey of attachment to God is not so much what we do and if we're shining at doing that thing, but it's who we're doing it with. So this morning, as I end in what I want to say, I want us to hear the invitation of Jesus when we go through these things. Have our end destination in mind, that beautiful union with Jesus. Set our expectations right and align our expectations. And then with all these markers, vulnerability, letting go, sacrifice, let's not see the difficult, oh, now I need to sacrifice again. Let's hear the invitation of Jesus to come closer to Him. And I want to end off, actually, it's not on my Bible because it's the Message. Are we allowed to read out of the Message? I don't know if we are, but I'm going to. They didn't even have it on the system. Then you know. But you won't tell anyone, hey, that we read out of the Message. It just summed it up so beautifully that I feel like I have to. Okay. So what I want to read is Philippians 3, verse 10 to 16. I gave up all that inferior stuff so I could know Christ personally, experience His resurrection power, be a partner in His suffering, and go all the way with Him to death itself. If there was any way to get in on that resurrection from the dead, I wanted to do it. I'm not saying that I have all this together, that I have made it, but I am well on my way, reaching out for Christ, who has so wondrously reached out for me. Friends, don't get me wrong. By no means do I count myself an expert in all of this, but I've got my eye on the goal, where God is beckoning us onward to Jesus. I'm off and running, and I'm not turning back. So, let's keep focused on that goal. Those of us who want everything God has got for us. If any of you have something else in mind, something less than total commitment, God will clear your blurred vision. You'll see it yet. Now that we're on the right track, let's stay on it. Where's Joe? There. Can you come up? So this morning we want to respond to God in this thing. And the first thing that we want to do is, the first response that I want to call for is for those of us who has actually never made that first step to be on the way. Who is not on the way of attachment to God. For maybe there's someone this morning who hasn't accepted Jesus' sacrifice yet for himself. Hasn't realized that we can't do this thing on our own, that we need, on our own, we're so deprived by ourselves, we can never be reconnected to God by our own. We need Jesus, and we need to accept His sacrifice. So this morning, I want to ask, is there any one of us that wants to come and say, yes, I want to accept that sacrifice. And then I want to keep company with Jesus on this way of attachment. I'm going to just give it one one more second. If there's anyone that says, Jesus, I know I'm not on this way, but I want to be. And this morning, I want to start this journey with you. I want you to just lift up your hand now. Okay. And then I want to give a response to all of us. I want us to, this morning, here, and this is, I don't really want to give a response, well, one or two people of us can respond, because I feel like God is wanting to do something in each one of us this morning. So I want us to listen now to God and see, where has He given the invitation, but we've misread that thing, and we've thought that's not our marker for this journey. It must be another journey's marker. Maybe it's in the vulnerability. Maybe it's somewhere in the letting go. Or maybe it's in the sacrifice, in the keeping company with Him. God, I pray that as we just quiet our hearts before you this morning, that you will come and to each one of us reveal which invitation to keep company with you we didn't accept. Or we just thought, oh, that's not right. We don't want to go there. That's just going to be painful. I pray that you will specifically speak to us and point out give that invitation to us again this morning, so that this morning we can respond to your invitation.